Using braid on a spinning reel is become very popular in the last several years, and there's different types of braids out there, different colors, and I want to go over today kind of how I choose the different types of colors based on the technique that I'm using. You got in one hand a very high-vis braid. You got your yellows, your lime greens, your whites. This is a neon green 10-pound test braided line. For that particular line, I'm going to be using bottom-oriented techniques. So this is just a little tube that I would throw for smallmouth. You could throw Ned rigs, drop shots, you know, all those types of bottom-oriented baits. I want to be throwing a high-vis braid, and the reason for that is I'm watching my line a lot of times when I'm throwing those bottom-oriented baits. You really need to be paying attention to what your line's doing to detect when your bait's on the bottom and when you're getting a bite. The one thing I do to counteract that bright line from the fish's perspective is I use a real long fluorocarbon leader. I'm using, you know, I peel off about 10, 15, 20 feet of line for a fluorocarbon leader. So the fish, they're not really seeing this high-vis braid. They're seeing your bait, and that's it. You know, you got a real long leader to counteract that bright line that you're using. And it allows me to still see it, but also give the fish a real natural presentation with that long leader. The other type of braid or color of braid that I'm using is a low-vis green. So like your forest greens, I'll use that when I'm using baits that I'm winding through the water column. So right here we've got a spin bait on here, you know, a hair jig, spin bait, little swim baits, those types of things where you're throwing them maybe a long distance for more of your smallmouth techniques. You can catch, you know, largemouth on spy bait and swim baits and hair jigs, but it's mainly your smallmouth techniques that I'm throwing this darker green. You're making real long casts. I don't need to be watching the line as much when I'm reeling a bait through the water column like I am when I'm fishing them on the bottom. I'm more concerned about making a long cast and more of a stealthy approach, and this darker braid hides a little bit better in the water column than this real bright stuff. So those are kind of the two reasons why I use a high-vis braid versus a low-vis. This is the Suffix 131. It's got a real slick coating on it. It allows me to make a long cast, and it's got that darker color, the low-vis green, to kind of hide our line a little bit better than this higher-vis stuff. So that's kind of the two reasons for why I'm using those two different types of braids. Match it to your technique that you're doing, whether it's a bottom-oriented bait or a winding bait. And I think it's going to generate some more bites for you and allow you to detect more bites too with that higher vis colored braid.